Okay, so I've been working on a project now for about 6 years, and it's one I haven't told anybody about. Well, I haven't told anybody online about it. If you're one of my friends in real life, you'll know that I don't actually shut up about it. Basically, I've been building my own virtual assistant like Jarvis from Iron Man. I'm sure most of you are wanting to see what it can do, so in a moment I'll stop yapping, I'll show you very briefly a snippet of what it can do, and then after that I'll explain a little bit more about what its abilities are, and also why the journey took 6 years and just to get to the point where I'm ready to show it off. So I'm super excited to finally introduce you to Stanley. Stanley.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are we?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm not bad, thank you.
Happy to hear it. I have some updates for you. Would you like me to read them out?
Sure.
Okay, I'll give you the updates. So starting with the weather, it is currently 20 degrees and sunny. The high is 24, and the low is 11 degrees. It's slightly overcast, and I'm not seeing any rain on the calendar today either. In terms of fantasy football, you're currently winning your friends' league with 2243 points. The only game today was Manchester United versus Arsenal, which actually just finished 1-0 to Arsenal. And finally, there are no events on your calendar today, so enjoy the free time. And that's all the updates I have for you at the moment.
How are we looking on that memory leak? Do we think it was the Strava widget?
It seems plausible. I didn't see any unexplained dashboard crashes yesterday, so it's likely to be the culprit.
Okay, let me know if we see any crashes. Stanley.
Good evening, sir.
Go ahead and run an internet speed test.
You got it. I'll run a new speed test and let you know once it's done. Okay, I have the results of your speed test. Would you like to hear them?
Yeah, go on then.
The download speed is 112.31 megabits per second. Upload speed is 108.49 megabits per second. Latency is 17.53 ms, and the jitter is 2.58 ms.
Stanley. I just took my blood pressure and it's 129/81.
That's a good reading for your blood pressure. 129/81 is within the normal range.
How's my blood pressure been looking over the last month?
Your blood pressure readings over the last 30 days have generally been within the pre-hypertension to stage 1 hypertension range, with systolic readings mostly between 120, 135 and diastolic readings primarily in the upper 70s to mid-80s.
Thanks, I'll keep an eye on it. Okay, so that's a couple of things you can do, but let me talk about some of the other things you can do. So Stanley can of course do all the things you'd expect from popular virtual assistants, like controlling lights, curtains and all that stuff, but he can do so much more that they can't do. This is just an intro video, so I'm going to follow up with additional videos later on which show all the stuff he can do in a lot more detail. But basically, he can control all the TVs in my home as well as the cable boxes. With that, he can keep an eye on the sports that are playing, and if I'm interested in a particular sport, he can put it on for me without me even having to say it, which is useful for the football. If there's a game on that I've forgotten about, he'll just put it on for me. In addition to that, he can show the TV footage on my dashboards as well. So scattered around my house, I've got tons of dashboards, and depending on the room I'm in, he can put that TV footage on the dashboard for me. Now, as well as putting sports on the TV for me, he also keeps an eye on my fantasy football team. As you heard in that video very briefly, he monitors the deadlines for me and helps me with the changes I want to make to my fantasy football team. Stanley also keeps an eye on my security camera system and will automatically bring the camera feed to my dashboard in the room I'm in if it detects any suspicious motion or if someone comes to the door. Another cool thing he's got is fail-safe alarms, which is where if I say I need to be up at 6 AM and it hits 6:15 and he still hasn't sensed any activity in the house, like lights or motion, he will assume that I've fallen back to sleep and he will shout at me to get up, which is pretty useful. He also monitors all aspects of my health data, from my blood pressure, which I struggle with, to my weight, fat composition, step count, even my Strava data. He monitors the network, so the internet around the house. He keeps an eye on the network speeds. He lets me know if there are outages. He also monitors the server that he runs on, as well as my NAS drives that are in my house too. NAS drives being just network attached storage. He also monitors my personal devices like iPhones, iPads and things like that, and keeps an eye on their battery level throughout the day. And then he also reminds me if my device is getting low on battery. You know, if I forget to charge my iPad, for example, he'll tell me. He also has face recognition and will greet our guests when they come over. If he hasn't met them yet, he'll say hi to them and introduce himself, or if he has, he'll say hello again or something like that, which is always a cool trick to show them.
Hi Reese, how are you?
Now, he's powered by my own fine-tuned ChatGPT model, which means I can chat to him about absolutely anything. I can ask him general questions, I can get advice, which I honestly use throughout the whole day as I'm working. I'll be sitting there, something will come into my head and I'll just ask Stanley and he will help me out with something. So I could talk all day about what he can do. I've honestly barely even scratched the surface. I know anyone can sit here and say that, oh, he can do this and that, but unless you see it in person, you probably won't believe it. I want to follow up with video demos of all these things I've talked about, rather than me just sitting here running my mouth. So stay tuned, I'm going to be posting more videos here on my YouTube channel and also posting more frequent updates on my Instagram and TikTok accounts, which until now I've barely touched. So go and follow them if you want to hear more about Stanley and the things he can do. So I know some of you are listening to all that saying, oh, this system can really do that, or you know, there's an app for that. But what I've found is there's no one solution for all these things. So for example, Apple has HealthKit, which can monitor all my health data. But if I ask Apple's assistant, which I won't say the name, to tell me my blood pressure, it's pretty clueless. Home Assistant, of course, as many of you will be familiar, is the closest thing to this and has a great community of people that are helping to build this, but even that wasn't as personalized as I would like. I also found that the breaking changes on Home Assistant were pretty annoying, and for the most part, I just wanted the challenge of building my own system. It's totally tailored to me. Alright, so why did it take me 6 years to get to this point where I'm ready to show it off? Well, the project is wildly complex. It's made up of about 4 or 5 different repositories, each with their own purpose, such as the voice clients, which are scattered around my house, which listen for speech. You've got the dashboards, which display the data, of course. We've got Mac and Windows clients, which can control my computer when I say something. So if I tell it to open a specific app, he can do that. Open Visual Studio Code.
Opening Visual Studio Code now.
Or there's also the Visual Studio Code extension that I built, which allows Stanley to build my code for me, or check out branches, or rebase and things like that. All via my voice, which is pretty cool. But most importantly, there's the main server, which is its own repository, and that runs locally in my home and is the brains that communicates with all of those other repositories, the dashboard, the Windows client, the voice clients. And this thing is running 24/7, it's doing computations at all points throughout the day. So in addition to there being a ton of repositories, the development process has been iterative, and I've rewritten everything from the ground up more times than I can count, particularly when I found my current implementation wasn't working how I wanted it to. More recently though, when ChatGPT came along, it rendered all of my previous language understanding work that I spent years doing totally pointless overnight, and I had to throw it out and start over.
Stanley, how are you?
Doing great, thanks.
So all of that, in addition to the fact that I work full-time at Microsoft and also try to maintain some kind of social life, just means that it's taken a long time. So I really can't wait to start sharing with you everything Stanley can do and why I believe he can be the best virtual assistant in the world. I've probably implemented maybe 10% of the ideas I've got in my head, so if you're interested, keep an eye out and I'll follow up with videos as I build new features. Thanks so much for listening to me chatter on for this whole video. I appreciate it. If you've got any questions, ask them in the comments and I'll try my best to answer.